Welcome to the Great Awakening Ministry. I am Minister and Yogini Joanne Lee. And on this week's show, back again, we have Justin Carpenter. Justin is a heartfelt spiritual man and my soul brother who shares his divine truth and sacred wisdom about Christ, Krishna, and Buddha consciousness within, and all about our awakening world at this great awakening time. He shares all this on his new YouTube channel, his Telegram chat, Facebook, and his website. In this week's show, we discuss whom or what is God, Goddess, within and without. As Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you. And why is it so important to see the good or God in all things?
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
So with this show, I just wanted to tell everyone about our thoughts on whom or what is God, Goddess. Yeah. I've written lots of things out, some things from my book, some things that, Jesus said, and we can just go for it and just, feel what we feel in our hearts to say, as we always do.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's such a important topic because it really is the question of who am I? That was the initial question that spiraled us into this experience. Who am I? Because who is God, Goddess? It's you, it's me, it's us, it's all of us together. We are an infinitely sort of separated, seemingly separated, although we can never be fully separated, perspective to have an insight into who am I? What is this? To discover, to find out, to explore. And that's who God Goddess is that essence within, that focalizing point, bringing us back to that unification.
And that's what this great awakening is, isn't it? It's the awakening of that goddess essence in every woman and that God essence in every man that has been repressed and subdued for eons. Yeah?
Yes, the seed within, that seed of consciousness that is beyond all observation, it's beyond thought. It's the prime intelligence that permeates through all of existence, is that divine spark within. And we're here to remember that, to go through the experience of forgetting that we are that. There is a purpose in the veil. There's a purpose in the forgetfulness.
But carry on. You were talking about the spark, the spark. I mean, we come from the oneness, from the singularity, and then God, Goddess, we come down through denser and denser to be coming to the physical body. And that's why it's so important, because at the moment of conception, the seed, the sperm and the ovum, it's boom, that spark of light, that divine light brings, that God, Goddess brings that divine light, a part of itself, into that body. And that is the soul consciousness, isn't it?
Yes, the zinc spark, at the point of inception, when the sperm crosses the membrane of the egg, it is at a cellular level, it is brighter than the sun. It is such a bright spark of light. And this signifies that point where consciousness, the non-material, non-physical aspects of consciousness, that light connects with physical solid matter to create us in this form, where we are the perfect union point between the non-physical, non-material consciousness beyond, and then having an experience in this physical realm. That's the nexus point, as I like to call it, where X marks the spot. That's the crossing point.
And God's Goddess experiences through us physicality, duality.
Yes, absolutely. It's we are like a you could say like a sensor or a lens in this experience, that divine spark is accessing to move through, because we are a part of that. It's not that we are separate from this. I am this divine spark. I am this divine access point, but I am exploring from my unique perspective, from this focalized point that's unique and different than any other aspect within creation, just to allow for an immersive and intense experience that's diverse and never the same. So it's always interesting to keep us to have these infinite vantage points to see ourselves and to explore and to bump up into each other and to have conversations. And it just never ends in that way, which creates an exciting, vibrant experience that we love to go through. We love to have this.
And to find that oneness, because we come from the singularity, we come from the oneness into duality, into separation. So, and I believe that, Krishna, God, Goddess, Christ consciousness, Buddha consciousness, Krishna consciousness, it's all the same thing. There's only one story. And, that's having that divine union of my individual soul consciousness with Christ, Buddha, God, and Krishna consciousness within, not without,
Yeah. And that's the Trinity experience. We often talk about duality, but it's really a Trinity, this breaking free from the singularity point, coming into the duality, which is the masculine and the feminine. These energies exist, the Ida and the Pingala, they exist in balance simultaneously within us. And then that Christed essence is the third, that's the child. So the father and the mother and the child creating this symbiosis of this experience where that Christed essence is leading us back to that singularity point. Not that we step back in fully to the singularity, but just recognize that I am connected to that singularity point. And then I get to explore this dualistic experience from a more vibrant and expansive way, knowing that I am connected to that focalized central point. And I get to step into this experience of pretending to be separate, because we're not fully separate, but we're pretending to be, just to have fun with it. So then I can embody this role that I'm playing as this character, walking around from this seemingly separate perspective, and get to step into it fully, but also add that back to the collective experience, that singular point, and that question that we asked of who am I?
Yeah. And that is so important, because that to me is peace on earth. That to me is enlightenment, having that knowing, having that connection, being at one with God, Goddess, being in love with God, Goddess in every moment. Yeah. That is what gives us that peace within every moment. So you're not looking for the next moment or the next thing. You're just being mindful, and you're having that blissful experience of everything just unfolding naturally in the divine moment of now, because God doesn't work in the past or the future. This is the divine moment where everything happens and where we can begin anew. And that's the place where God, Goddess, makes the miracles happen. So having that's where it is. And it's not like amazingly difficult. It's so simple, is it not?
It is very simple. I mean, the only aspect that gets complicated is this complicated lie that we've sort of thrown ourselves into, where everything is focused on the external. I'm always focused on the out there. I'm always focused on the past or the future. I'm never just here and now, which is the only space that actually exists. I'm always caught up in the illusion. And so that's what, is you could say is an unfortunate byproduct of this material experience and seemingly separating ourselves from that divine spark, is this illusory reality that we can craft, should we only exist in that left brain externalized reality. And so then we create a construct, an identity, a false construct in the world around us that can consume us. But this is all illusory. So to come back to the realization that it's not that I need to disregard it entirely, but just not give it power, not give it power, and come back into that centered space. Recognize that everything that does exist within is projecting outward. And then I can start to work on manifesting an external reality that reflects my inner reality.
Yeah. And that is so true. And that is just, that's just so true. It's very important to have, that peace within, and that calm internal place, because we are a mirror. Everything within is mirrored without. And, but it's just having that simpleness of that connection with the divine that makes everything else okay. Is it not? It's just okay. You don't need to be looking or seeking. It just is. You just are. You have never, everything else in this 3D world is transitory and changeable. Only your spirit soul, only your soul consciousness is the everlasting, eternal spark of flame within that does not die. So really, what's the problem? It doesn't matter if your physical body dies. You're going to go on to the most beautiful, celestial, melodious, incredible, different aspects of multidimensionality that you wouldn't even believe. So yeah, it's just remarkable. But I mean, what I was just getting back to you about, I really wanted to focus on a little bit now the mother female face of God, because we really have been under, for all these years, lots of male domination, the patriarchal in the Piscean age, especially. It was all about looking for a particular guru, a particular religion, a particular political party, something to belong to. And that was a very, very harsh time, the Piscean age. But the Aquarian is to go within. I am, and I mean, I just wrote this in my book, and this is absolutely fascinating. In the book of Genesis, which is the first book of the Bible, chapter 1, verse 26, it says, the Elohim were both male and female, and we humans were made in their image. Elohim is a Hebrew word. El means God and is masculine, and the feminine form of El is Eloah, which means goddess. Elohim is plural, meaning God, goddess, male and female. Jehovah is also in the book of Genesis, and the Hebrew name of God. Jehovah in Hebrew translates to HVHY. These 4 letters translate to Yod, which means the male phallus, Adam, and to Heva, which means the female mother womb, Eve. Thus, the feminine and masculine energies created this world together. And there is only one force that moves through everything. And we are an expression of that one force. So really, God, goddess is androgynous in that way. You can call it it's the light, because for me, God, goddess is the photons of light coming in through the pineal, giving us divine intelligence. It's the angles, the photons of light, and it's the energy, it's the divine love light energy, which, could be at the source of our realm. Give us your feelings on that.
Yeah. Well, beautifully said. And it is the simplicity of it, of recognizing that it is beyond the sexes, it's beyond the male and the female. It's these two seemingly opposite forces within the masculine and the feminine. They give us this contrasting element of them playing off of each other, which allows creation to flourish. It's what that friction between these two is where life emerges from, as we've spoken about before. That is the sacred sex. So there is this symbiosis between these two seemingly opposite forces to give that full expression of life to emerge. And we need that diversity within it, because if everything was the same, you wouldn't have that give and take. And it exists within us as well, of just having an opportunity to express from our masculine side, which is more of the action and the doing and bringing things in. But if that is led without that feminine care and compassion, that connection, then that's where we see society as today, this sort of overly masculinated reality where everything's about hierarchy, as you mentioned, where there's someone in charge and there's a hierarchy, which is just a false sense of separation. There's no connection within that.
Yeah.
So to address that is not to get away from the masculine expression entirely, but just to bring in the feminine expression, to bring in the balance of these two. And then we can have our actions, very needed actions, but everything is resulting from that expression of that care and compassion, that connection, that knowing that all is one and the same. And so we don't have to deviate away from that. And there is no hierarchy. There's no separation. This is just an experience that we're having to play these different roles, to play in these different characters and have fun while we're doing it. And that's ultimately what we're doing. We're just here to have fun.
Exactly. And we are made in the image of God. We are the children, the little goddesses coming down to play the masculine role this time for you, me, the feminine role this time for us, to create, a better world and to create that heaven on earth. I believe that's what's going to happen. Eventually we'll all be in our light energy bodies as well, because the physical will become less and less dense. But it's just so beautiful, isn't it? This is what we're here for, to play the game of creation. But it's all got really serious. It got too serious, because they've taken over, the dark agenda and diminished our divinity and told us that we are worthless and told us that we are sinners, when they don't want us to know that we are gods and goddesses, in the making. And this is what we're here for. Not in the way that, oh, I'm God and I rule over everyone. This is just, that's playing into the patriarchal role, or even a woman. Matriarchy and patriarchy, they are the same. It means to rule over. Yeah. In many of the goddess eras, before God rule came in, male rule came in, there was a lot of goddess cultures, and the women, they used to make the great big beautiful statues of the women with the breasts and the big bellies and everything, because they revered the woman because she got pregnant, and then they didn't know how she got pregnant. And, it was just beautiful. But they had matricentral societies, meaning the mother and the child around the heath, which is the normal way in society works. You've got all the mammals, the whales, the dolphins. It's always the matricentral, the mother with the young, and the men are going out protecting and getting the food for the heath. Yeah. So, and that is a beautiful one, because the mother just leads the children to become independent until they don't need her anymore, which is, a beautiful way of looking at that. So, and that's bringing in, it was that way before, but now we're coming into unity consciousness, are we not?
Yes, absolutely. And it's allegorical. It's sort of representational of that communion between these two seemingly opposite forces within. Whereas we've been trained in this sort of overly masculine dominated reality where we're negating the feminine side, the right brain, the heart. Whereas the best way for creation to enter into this space and this expression to reach its highest is to allow the feminine, is to allow that divine mother aspect within us lead, let her guide. So she is the guidance, because she's the receptive, she's the openness, she's that state of surrender, which is what allows that divine spark to flow into us. So when we have that surrender as the first, then our receiver is turned on and we're able to receive that divine essence, that divine influence. And then she passes that over to the masculine side of us for the action, to bring it into the physical space. So this is that transmission from her to him. And then the work between these two is what creates the child, which is every creative effort within this experience. So you have the mother receiving, passing to the father to create with that sort of action oriented expression, and then the result of that is the child,
the holy child.
So it's this balance between these two. So it makes perfect sense why in a societal standard we would need to move back to this expression, to where her voice is truly allowed to be in that expression, to act as that guide. And then he takes that torch and performs whatever action, whatever is necessary, but just for that short period of time, to return the power back to her. And there's a shared balance between the two in that sense.
Yes.
It's not that any is better than the other.
Yes. And I believe that what you just said is so true, because the masculine has to allow the feminine to rise, to be put in her rightful position of influence and power, to, ease, to bring in that unity. I always say that the world's been flying on one wing. Yeah. It needs two to fly beautiful and straight. And but the masculine has to allow, that the woman to rise, to come up to where he is.
Yes.
It's so important, isn't it?
Yes. And because she's imbued with that care and compassion, that essence, and it's not necessarily like men and women. This is an energy that exists within all of us, but that essence, that feminine essence within us, is connected to that care and compassion. So there's no possible way that any action that's followed through from that guidance is going to lead to any harm to creation, because that care and compassion, that connection, knows that it's connected to all. So it's never going to get to a space where I can inflict harm upon another aspect of self, because the connection is realized. But if I'm creating those actions without that care and compassion, without that feminine influence, then that's what leads to the potential for harm. That's what leads to destruction and chaos and all that.
That's right. Because the woman is birthing, is the womb, is the birthing of the new creation, and the masculine is the overseer, the protector of that process of planting the seed within, and then helping that to grow, and the protection of this new earth that we're all moving into. That's miraculous, isn't it?
Yes.
I love that. Yes. And I just wanted to say a few from the Bible, because this is Gospel of John, chapter 10, verse 34. The people are just about to kill Jesus for claiming to be God. And Jesus replies to them, "Is it not written in your law, I have said you are gods?" And in Genesis chapter 3, verse 5, the serpent in the Garden of Eden says, "For God knows that when you eat of it, the tree of knowledge, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." It's just, just so beautiful, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and like you said, it's to have that knowing, and be mindful of the egoic snare that's trying to take that concept and wield it, and from a power pursuit of saying, "Oh, I am more God than somebody else."
Yeah. It's the ego.
That's always the ego. And it plays in both ends of that spectrum. Either I am more God, or I am less God than another aspect of creation. And both of those are lies. We are not more God or less God than anything else within creation. This is an equal opportunity experience, where we get to express ourselves, knowing that divine sparks come within. And it doesn't limit ourselves to just humanity. It's every animal, it's every plant, it's every part of creation is also God. God permeates through everything.
Exactly. It all has the same soul consciousness. Even a rock has some sort of understanding. When a bird goes in it to shield it, it understands, or has a conscious something of the heat and the cold of when the bird, it sheltered that bird. Everything is evolving. Everything changes and moves and evolves into something else. It's just so beautiful, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And God is just goodness. It's in the word, and that goodness is the foundation of this experience. So we're never moving away from that inherent goodness. God is good because creation is good.
And that's why you have to see the God or the good in all things, because in Isaiah chapter 45, verse 7, God says, "I form the light and create the darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things."
Yep.
Why do you think there's, the good and the evil was all created by one supreme soul? It's the supreme soul of all souls to play the game of good and evil, to play the game of duality, light and dark, feminine, masculine. It's all about, we've got to embrace our darkness as much as our light. And what you were saying, I mean, that is so powerful, isn't it? But as long as we do it in service to humanity and for the good of all living beings, so mote it be, then it's done in the correct way. You're not going to be an overlord of your godliness or your goddessness within, and we've got to embrace our darkness. That's what it says.
Yeah, it's the full spectrum. There's nothing that deviates or separates from God goodness completely. We can pretend to, and we enjoy this pretending aspect because it allows, ultimately, God loves a wonderful story, an amazing story that has the protagonist and the antagonist. You have the friends and you have the enemies, and it's not to imbue that sort of fighting reality at all times, but it does allow, that contrast allows for the greatest story to emerge, so that we can evolve past the point to where we really need to have these contrasting elements within this space. There's no need for evil to exist, yet we're at a level now where we need evil to be here, to learn from it, to learn from our darkness, so that we can face our darkness, as you said, and not be shying away from it, not pretending it doesn't exist, and not separating from it either, to truly embody and embrace it, and recognize that it's just the result of some area within ourselves where we're not loving ourselves. There's some area that love has not permeated fully, and so that's where we do our work. That's where we focus on, to find that wounded child within and love it, so that it's not causing harm and inflicting damage out there. That's right. And as you always say, Justin, everything that's happened, we have created that. We created it by our ignorance of not realizing what we were doing, of not standing up before, of not speaking our truth. We created all of that as well, because in this realm, the power of God, goddess, we can use it for either good or for evil. We have the power. God puts it through us to push out into this world, this realm, to use. So that is really important for us to use it as well as we can for goodness and for the good of all, so might it be, because it's an important responsibility. Yes, absolutely. And, going back to the allegory from the Garden of Eden, us making that choice to bite the externalized forbidden fruit representing the tree of knowledge of good and evil is an outward expression to where we weren't imbuing that internal process, which is the balance between the tree of everlasting life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is left brain and right brain. It's not that we negate the left brain and disregard the knowledge acquired, but we have to use it in balance with the tree of everlasting life, so that we have these two hemispheres working hand in hand, the heart and the mind working hand in hand. So that's what gets us back into the garden. That's what gets us back into this fullest and highest expression, is to take that full balance into account and not be running willy-nilly without regarding the full and wholeness of ourselves. Yeah. And I believe that eating of that apple, they say, it was the woman's greatest downfall, because Eve was the one, who ate it. But I believe it was her biggest triumph, because she stepped outside of her comfort zone. She wanted to know, she wanted to taste the unforbidden. She had to step into her dark side, into the shadow. She had to embrace it. And it was the only way for her to know her divinity, to step into the darkness, to find the light. We have to fall in order to rise, in order to truly expand this experience and this expression. There is a dip. There's always a point where we fall, and that's the sine wave. That's the torus field. There's a condensation. There's a compression at the center to allow the expansion in the external to expand even further. And the sine wave going up and down. It has to be that way, because in order to expand further and to experience a greater expansion within creation, there has to be a fall so that we can rise.
Just like we are all fallen angels
Mm-hmm.
coming from the oneness, and then we rise, coming through the oneness to explore and to have that Mother Earth experience,
Mm-hmm.
to learn about the mother, to embrace the mother, and then we rise our Kundalini up to the Father. It's Shiva rising up to Shakti,
Mm-hmm.
and that ultimate union, that divine union. It's again Jesus and Mary, Shakti and Shiva, Adam and Eve. It's always that divine union, and that divine union is a representation of our masculine and feminine soul mate, but also the soul consciousness with Christ, Buddha, and Krishna consciousness within.
Yes, the union between earth and heaven, to not to say that one is better than the other, or to have only, but to have a balanced experience of both of these, so that I can remember fully. I can fall into the experience where I forget everything about who I am, just to go through the challenge of rediscovering, remembering, and coming back to that realization that, yes, I am an angel. I'm an angle of light here, experiencing this physical reality, to remember that, to come back into that fullest and highest expression. And then I am that union point between, and then heaven can flow through me to manifest on earth, and then it becomes heaven on earth. Yes. Channel.
That is so beautiful. That really is. I love that. That. And going back to what, some, in the spiritual community, it's like, oh, holier than thou. I used to have a real problem, like, with my being a yogini, and being holy, because I'd experienced very unholy things in my life. But, I realized that I am just as much holy as I am sacrilegious. We all are. This is the diversity. This is the duality that we're in. And we have to embrace that sacrilegious part, that unholy part of ourselves, because so many people say, oh no, it's all love and light. We can't go into the darkness. Yeah, we can, because there's a lot of darkness on this earth. And it goes into a passage, just a little, the definition of God, goddess from the ancient Indian Vedic scriptures, right? So it says, and this is so beautiful, the description of God, goddess: softer than a flower where kindness is concerned, stronger than thunder where principles are at stake.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, it's, of course, it's expressed in this allegorical representation that Yeshua in the story represents as well, but people get confused in thinking that Yeshua, Jesus, was just this passive, easygoing, everything is just love and light all the time kind of guy. But then you truly read the stories, and I'm sure we're missing so many aspects of his story. But to see that fire and gruffness that comes out as well when necessary, where he says to Peter,
he did all the tables,
yes,
they was all killing all the animals.
Yes, where he flipped over the tables in the temple, and an expression of divine anger to bring forward a needed change. Or when he told Peter, "Get behind me, Satan," one of his most beloved disciples, he said, "Get behind me, Satan," for having that doubt within him. So when we have, and sure, some people might look at that and said, that's not very loving for Jesus to say that. But in actuality, when he flipped over those tables in the temple, that's the most loving thing that he could do, to give the people within that space an opportunity to see the satanic mess that was being created around them. So we need to have this full range of expression to allow these emotions, energy in motion, to flow through into this space, which is just another feminine, divine feminine aspect to come in and flow in and bring about a needed change. That's why the moon is equated to that feminine aspect, and the full moon has an expansive expression, and we can either channel that in a way to allow creation to move through us and to flow in a greater way, or it can be a destructive force. But that's fine too, because if there's a needed destruction, if we need to learn through contrast, through karma, to actually learn and grow, then so be it. We get to choose which way we do it.
Exactly. And the old word for sin, right, moon, yeah, that was an old word, right? Sin was an old word for the moon goddess in ancient times. And that's really weird, because what is it to sin? Now, for me, to sin, apart from committing murder and doing something, but that self-sabotaging sin of your thoughts, of your negative, horrible thoughts, feelings, words, and actions to yourself and to another soul. And that is why, you know, this is so important, because you can be as soft, when it means to be as soft, you know, as the flower where kindness is concerned, being kind in your thoughts, feelings, words, and actions, because this is really important. And I just did an amazing interview with Douglas, my friend in Australia, who's a professor, and he's interviewed 500 people who've died and come back to life. And he's done, you know, and he says the life review, that's the one we did. The life review, we come in, the being of light is there, but we review and we feel every thought, every feeling, every word, and every action that we did to another soul. But it just doesn't happen there, right? We feel it because it's a ripple effect. So when we do it here on this earth, it just doesn't hurt that person. That person will then feel so bad because they're unevolved. They will go out and they will then do a bad action to another person. And then that person will go out because they're unevolved. And it'll go on and on and on until it goes to maybe an awakened person who stops that. But that ripple effect, you're hurting a lot of people, you know, and that is why in that life review, it's like a flash and it all comes in, but it's in an instant, because there is only now in the spiritual world, you know. And it's like, wow, that really made me think that's just so important about making every thought, feeling, word, and action a sacred thought, feeling, word, and action. Then you're not making any more karma.
Yes.
In this life or the next life.
Yes. Well, and even look at the word sin and the sine wave. It's the same. So the sine wave is that it's not a bad thing. It's an aspect of us that allows us to learn from that expression. And we can either learn through the contrasting element of seeing, as you've mentioned, the pain that has been caused, that has been permeated out, creating that sine ripple effect, as you're talking about, because those are the ripples that go out into creation. Or the other end of the spectrum is this love that's permeating and creating that symbiosis, but it's also creating a ripple effect, just in a different frequency. And that's why the frequencies are measured on the sine wave in that sort of oscillating pattern, because they are the ripples that permeate throughout all this experience.
It just, everything is connected, you know. Yes. It's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. And this is why, you know, and what did Jesus say? He says, you know, when you've been slapped, turn or hurt from another person, instead of reacting, retaliating in the same way back, because that just brings you down to that person's level. Then, you know, turn and allow them to do your other cheek as well. You know, being the master of your feelings, thoughts, words, and actions is what we're here. We're here to master ourselves. We're here to find that middle path and to calm ourselves and master our reaction, you know.
Recognize those traumatic patterns, as you mentioned. So when an initial act of trauma grabs hold, it becomes this disease that spreads just in that way, where it does permeate out until somebody comes along and says, you know what, I am not going to spread this disease any longer. The pattern of trauma stops with me. That reactivity stops here. And that's stepping back into our sovereignty, our power, stepping in as the king and queen of our domain, and saying, I'm not allowing that to pass through these gates, nor am I going to inflict this on another. No. And it's through that act that we're able to restore balance and come back into ourselves.
Yes. And that is, we become the 0 point. Mm-hmm. So all of our ancestors and that lineage and whatever they went through, and all of the patterns that we pick up, you know, we have to let them all go, because we've accumulated all of them. but we have to become the 0 point so that we don't push it down into our next generation. It stops with us. It stops with us. That's why it's such a big responsibility to do your inner work so that you can master yourself. And so you don't give out to them people and then have that ripple effect, because that is scary. You can actually affect many, 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 many people just from your one bad word that you had towards someone, you know. So it's all very well being love and light, but if you're not, you're turning around and you're being reactive and you're giving that out, then that's not being a master of over yourself.
No, and if it's a false light where I'm just pretending to be that, but deep inside that darkness still exists and still has roots, and I'm not addressing that, then I'm a ticking time bomb. You know, I'm just waiting for that next moment to where those reactions, where my mental will to constrain that darkness within, when that fails, because it's not imbued, it's not holistic, and then I start to cause that traumatic pattern again. So yes, it's a full surrender, and it's a full willingness to say, you know what, I'm ready to look at every aspect of self. I'm ready to know myself fully, even the parts that are scary and daunting, even the parts that are intimidating and maybe not necessarily comfortable to go into. Those are the most important areas for us to address, to face,
right,
so that we're not inflicting those patterns on another. And these are things that come generationally, you know, where our mother experienced trauma while we were in the womb, before we were born, before she was born by her mother, and of course inflicted by any beings that are around. And that layers, our DNA is encoding information. So we're constantly just taking on this information until someone chooses to write it a little bit differently, until someone says, I want to use love as my primary instead of this fearful reality.
That's right. Until someone absorbs that fear and that negativity and that harshness and transmutes it into love and joy. We are transmuters. We're taking that in and we're transmuting it, and we're going to give it out in that beautiful way.
Yeah, we're alchemists.
You know, that's just so important. And also because whatever you give out, whatever you do to yourself, you're doing to others. Whatever you do to another, you're doing to yourself. And when you realize that, you can't cause harm to another being, because you'll be harming yourself. It's the circle of life, of cause and effect. Everything you give out, you shall receive. You know, it's just so important, isn't it? Because, you know, we're just the same soul consciousness. You're doing it to one soul. This is the one story, the one soul that we all share.
Yes. Yeah, it's madness. It's truly madness when we look at it in that simple form, to ever cause harm to another, because I am causing it to myself. So when we truly have that as our foundation, that's the solid rock that Yeshua spoke on, building your house on the solid rock and not the sand. Because if we're building on the sand as if I am separate, if I'm building it on the illusion, then at the first storm, it's going to get blown away. But coming back to that solid rock, that foundation, that I am connected to all, because I am all, you know, I am, but I'm not more than anything else. I'm not more than anyone else, nor am I less than anything else. It is truly this, this all is self. So then I can love all of me fully and wholly, completely, without the degradation that comes in from this separation experience that we're playing.
Yes. There is no, well, this is what it says. That's what I wrote in the book. I am that I am. I am the life. I am the love. And I am the divine soul consciousness within everything. There is no separateness. There is only one supreme being, one eternal super soul who placed a part of itself inside every living being. This is who we are, and this is our salvation.
Yes. Yeah, it doesn't get any simpler than that. And, you know, but it's something that we can't just learn about intellectually and think that that's going to address it. It's something that we have to imbue so deeply within us, to where it's our firsthand nature to connect in that way, and to know that every conversation that I have is a conversation with me. It's a conversation with us. So I would never hold that conversation in a space to where I'm viewing something as separate. I would never act in a way where there is a separation, and truly just allow the experience and the feeling of separation to give this an experience that is more fun and expansive to play with, to play these roles so that we can come together and share our different stories and experiences and laugh and play together.
And this is why it's so important, the masculine and feminine, because we're mirrors to each other, that show each other the light and dark aspects and bring them to the surface for the work to be done. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is what everything is about. Union. Everything is about union. My divinity sees your divinity. It honors your divinity. My divinity in me honors the divinity within you. That's what namaste is. Namaste, it says, I honor the divinity within you, and you and mine to you, because it's all at the end essence, just one.
Yes.
It's difficult though. And I mean, we've been trained never to ever. It's always, my dad, I remember him saying to me, Joe, when I was really young, you got to stop looking after everyone else, Joe. I'm telling you, you got to start looking after yourself. But I just wanted to help everyone and just heal the world, and just, that was me. And I can't stop. It's a divine calling, to want to do that. And so it shall be. We have to.
And there's wisdom in what he said, in that we have to honor ourselves as a part of that equation. We can't get caught up into this sort of martyrdom approach where I'm giving to everything else around me, but I'm not truly loving myself in that process. But to have that balanced place where, yes, I'm honoring the self, I'm providing, I'm caring for the self, so that I can care for others and other aspects of creation in a more vibrant way. And then, as the dharmic influence is the natural state of this experience, dharma flows and augments that service, that expression of service, and allows that service to flow even more greatly. And then creation just expands further and further if we allow it to. So if we truly step into this infinite energy potential of creation to reward itself, then we get to step into the fullest expression of service. And it just depends on how big can we dream? How big can we dream to serve in greater and greater ways?
That's right. And that's what I believe in my life so far, putting God, Goddess first, and being of service. I've been wanting to do my ministry for many years, and I tried to get the funding for so many years, but it was all wrong. And it was like, I was trying to do it for me and my children. I wasn't doing it for God, and I wasn't doing it for humanity. And as soon as I changed that, and I realized, no, I really am doing it for humanity. It's a humanitarian project, then of course God's going to come in, and that's going to actually happen. Because when you do it for others, you shall always, when you do it for God and for others, you shall always be looked after.
Yes, absolutely. That's why Yeshua says, to consider the birds. Like, there's no need for us to be consumed with hoarding treasures and being concerned with what am I going to eat or what am I going to wear, because when we are in aligned with that God goodness within, then God goodness will always take care of the layers of self that are aligned with the God goodness. It's a natural byproduct. It augments itself in that way. But if we are consumed by fear and lack of, I don't have enough, or what am I going to do? How am I going to operate? Then we're imbuing ourselves with that fearful consciousness. And creation doesn't really, it doesn't discriminate against any thought pattern. It doesn't discriminate against any energy. Free will is free will. So if we imbue ourselves with the energy of fear and lack, that we don't have enough, well, creation's going to give us exactly that. It's not going to
exactly, because we are God goddesses, miniature versions, and we create with our feelings and our thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So it's so important. It's so important to, you know, realize and celebrate our godliness, you know, and our goddessness and being righteous. And, you know, there, just for the last few minutes, Justin, give us some little things that we can do to raise that within us, you know, to have that, you know, when when you get them times and you just know you have that connection, and it's so beautiful. It's so awesome and inspiring, you know, tears of joy come to you, you know, help. It's that raising the vibration to be in that place. So yeah, give us some things that we can do.
Sure. Well, I mean, Yeshua talks about this and how only the children will enter the kingdom of heaven. And so this is an allegory for truly viewing, not that we have to be a child, but to live as a child, to see reality from the eyes of a child, to come back into that innocent and wondrous expression of, you know, and we can remember those times where we were playing out in the yard, or having coming up to a massive tree, or seeing some fantastic thing happening, and just the wonder and amazement that we had as a child. So to come back into that authentic expression allows us to celebrate and truly be in joy in the present moment, in the here and now, marveling at the amazement of this experience and this expression and what this has led to. So if I can truly imbue myself within that in every moment, then there's no losing. And I'm walking hand in hand with the creator that is that divine spark of innocence. That's the purity, that's the light within. It's the most guarded and precious treasure within all of creation, is that divine spark, that innocent spark within all of us, that child, that inner child. And of course, that's why that is such a coveted treasure for those seeking to subjugate this reality as well, is taking of that divine child. So if we can bring us back into that state of awareness, then we're allowing that expression from the divine to flow through in a better and brighter way. So that would be one way that's always wonderful to admire, and just catch myself whenever I'm stepping outside of that, whenever I'm moving into a pattern of sort of mundane repetition, sort of robotic autopilot, where I'm not really experiencing, where I'm lost in thought, consumed with the past or the future, which both of those aren't real, and just come back to the present moment. And if I need to do it by just taking several deep breaths in the here and now and just seeing reality all around me. Sometimes I like to go through an exercise where I just list off things that I'm grateful for, or even just note the colors and the textures of the physical objects around me, to come bring myself back into that present moment and negate the distractions that I was experiencing from the wandering thoughts in every which direction. So to do that is a wonderful way. And to do that even more effectively, of course, to go outside in nature, to truly be in this expression with the Mother Earth. She's always going to be guiding us back to that present moment, because she is our mother. So if we want to find that inner child within, then of course we go see Mama and she brings us back to that expression. It's so simple in that way, you know. So that's another handy tip that is quite helpful. And then another one is just to utilize the mirror practice, where every time I'm looking at myself in the mirror, looking into my own eyes and seeing the creator.
Yeah.
Truly seeing the creator, truly seeing that this is that divine spark within, truly seeing it, expressing and giving thanks and gratitude for just having me, you know, to really get to have this experience in that way. And then doing the same thing when I look into the eyes of any other aspect of self, any other being, to see the creator, to truly, there's never stepping away, to look into the eyes of a dog or a cat or any animal and see the creator. Yeah. To see this divine expression coming through in that way. And that allows me to come back to that center point and that realization that I am never separate. I am never away from that. And I'm truly seeing myself in all things around me. So those would be some handy tips that I'd give for coming back into this
beautiful,
true expression of who we are.
Yeah. And like, when you feel yourself, like you said, you feel yourself going off, then you just come back and, how would Mary or Jesus react? How would, what would God be in this moment, in this situation? Because, chaos can be all around you. But if you're in your place, in your center, in your 0 point, then yeah, that's, going into that place, being in that love place with the divine.
Yeah.
Divine love never runs out.
No. Then we become the alchemist in every moment, to where no matter what sort of offerings were given from the external, we get to transmute that lead into gold, because it is gold. We just have to sort of dust it off. Perhaps we might have to do a little transmuting in that moment, but that's the magic that we have within us. We can take it into that 0 point and pull it back out in a much more brighter and beautiful expression to refine it in that way. And then all that we see is gold. We have the Midas touch. We're able to transmute every experience into gold in every moment.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I love that so much. And I just want to say, Justin, thank you for, this discussion, because it's so important for people to know, and demystify, God, because it's like, God's had a bad rap. Yeah, for a while now. Goddess is only just re-emerging again, the feminine face of God, which is unity. So thank you for your divine wisdom, and thank you for being back on the Great Awakening Show.
Of course, it's an absolute pleasure to do it. And thank you so much for having me.